I was last elected in 1982, so I finished up at the end of 1984. So I've been out of Congress now for about 11 years. I was there for 4 terms, so there had to be a little bit of an adjustment. Although during the time I was in Washington, I would come home on weekends, I would frequently see patients on Saturdays, and I would also assist on surgery, so I was not completely away from medicine, but there were still some adjustments I had to make. I had to brush up on some of the newer techniques and learn some of the things that had been developed while I was away. But I did not find it too difficult, and I've always been convinced that politicians ought to not be professional and that they should be staying at home, so I've tried to stay close to my profession throughout the time I was in Washington. But when I left, I didn't leave because of lack of interest. I left for various reasons. I didn't want to give up medicine. I believed in term limitations. I didn't think we should have professional politicians. I still had children in school and thought I should be at home, and our kids never moved to Washington. My wife stayed here and took care of kids. So I was always very active in both politics and in my profession. When I came back, I resumed my medical practice, and I've been doing that ever since. But I've also stayed active in education. Long term, I don't think political action is worth very much if you don't have education. And so I continued with my Economic Education Foundation, the Free Foundation, which was started in 1976. So that's been very active. And actually, in the last several years, we've been doing some video work in an educational manner. We did 14 different 30-minute programs on video. But along with that, I also put out a political type of business investment newsletter. It sort of covered all these areas. And it covered a lot about what was going on in Washington and financial events, and especially some of the monetary events. Since I had been especially interested in monetary policy, had been on the banking committee, and I'm still very interested in that subject, that this newsletter dealt with it. This has to do with the value of the dollar, the pros and cons of the gold standard, and of course the disadvantages of all the high taxes and spending that our government seems to continue to do. I haven't really missed being in Congress, because when I go to Washington, I keep thinking, you know, boy, how does anybody put up with this? And even when I watch C-SPAN and watch Congress in session, you know, it isn't like, boy, I wished I were there, because there's a lot of headache and heartache going on. And yet I love dealing in the ideas. I love dealing with economic activities and subjects. And I really haven't missed anything, because I've been able to participate in all these things by helping through education and other things. But to actually miss it, to miss what they think is glamorous about Washington, no, absolutely not. Because actually, you know, if I had stayed, my seniority would have permitted me to be a committee chairman by now. And I don't envy that position, because that had never been my goal. My goal has been trying to change policy in a serious manner, rather than just to obtain and exercise political power. That does not attract me in any way at all. I've been out these 11 years and have maintained this interest in economics, and also I've watched what's going on in Washington. And last year, it certainly was very encouraging to see a lot of new young members coming in that have been very determined to do something about the mess that we're in. But quite frankly, I haven't been really impressed with the changes. The changes, the rhetoric is getting a little bit better. The arguments are still there, but you know, what's the big deal between arguing between a 7-year balanced budget plan and a 10-year budget plan? You know, I think there was a poll taken that 84% of the American people are totally cynical of both sides arguing about the balanced budget. So, but I think the people are more ready now than ever before. So about 2 or 3 years ago, I actually had made a plan to at least offer my services once again. I think being out for 10 years and going back again when the people are more ready for some of the things I've been talking about has kept my interests intact, and that's the reason I have decided I am running again for the U.S. Congress on the terms and conditions and the philosophy that I've been expressing for these last 15 to 20 years. Some former members of Congress have the right answers, and they went with the right purpose and left under good conditions and went back home. I would say one thing, that if you're a former member of Congress and you never went back home and you became a lobbyist, I'd be very leery of listening to those individuals. But the individual, some former members of Congress, I think, could offer some advice. But I think it should be the ones that didn't have to go, didn't need to go for the glamour, didn't need to go for the money, and went back because they didn't have an ego so big that they had to stay there. So for the right member of Congress or former member of Congress, I think they could offer something. But the bottom line is, what do they believe in? You know, if you're a member of Congress, or if you're a former member of Congress, or a teacher, and you believe in the principles that our founders put into the Constitution, if you believe in the American philosophy, then I would say we should listen to them.